In the heart of the tropical forest, among the branches and dense foliage, a gorilla was walking. Its massive body moved heavily, with a noticeable limp. Its left front leg was strangely bent, swollen, covered with a cloudy coating, and it seemed to tremble with pain with every step. Under the thick fur on her leg, a yellow liquid was visible. Pus had accumulated in it. The swollen tissue was about to burst. The gorilla walked slowly, almost silently. She often stopped, leaning against trees to catch her breath. Because of the pain, she could not eat as she used to. She had become thinner, her ribs barely visible under her skin. Her eyes were cloudy, full of suffering. Other animals sensed her weakness and kept their distance. Even the small monkeys, usually frolicking in the branches, lay low, as if the whole forest had frozen in sympathy. She wandered, hoping only that the pain would stop. But somewhere deep in the jungle, a man was already on his way. Or, more precisely, a group of people, forest rescuers. Their journey was just beginning. The gorilla lay under an overhanging tree, as if hiding from pain and the world. Her breathing was labored, and her leg had swollen even more. Deformed tissue bulged beneath her fur, and pus was about to burst out. At that moment, forest rescuers made their way through the thicket. One of them, a veterinarian named Lucas, immediately noticed the animal's serious condition. He raised his hand, signaling the team to be quiet. Slowly, step by step, he approached the gorilla, who looked at him warily, but not hostile. She no longer had the strength to fight. "Calm down. Everything's okay," Lucas whispered quietly, crouching down beside her. He examined the leg. The swelling was hot, and yellow fluid was visible under the skin. Thick pus that had collected deep inside. The team quickly prepared the instruments. Lucas took a sterile lancet, took a deep breath, and pierced the inflamed area. The pus gushed out, thick, yellow, and foul-smelling. The gorilla flinched but did not move. On the contrary, it seemed to feel better. Everything that had long accumulated inside flowed out of the swelling. Pain, suffering, pus, like a symbol of a long illness. It worked. "It'll be easier now," Lucas muttered. Another rescuer wiped the wound with sterile gauze. They had to act quickly. The inflammation could turn into an infection if not bandaged. When the pus had completely drained out, the gorilla began to breathe a little more evenly. It seemed that the most painful part was over. But the rescuers knew that if they didn't bandage the wound and take the animal to the clinic now, things could take a turn for the worse. Lucas carefully washed the open cavity with antiseptic. The gorilla moaned quietly, but did not struggle, as if she understood that the people around her meant no harm. Her eyes were full of fatigue and trust. The rescuers quickly opened the first aid kit. One of them handed him a sterile bandage. Lucas carefully began to wrap the front leg around the wound, securing the bandage tightly, but without applying pressure. He secured the bandage with tape and examined it. The bleeding had stopped, and the swelling had subsided a little. "It's done. Now we need to carefully carry her to the car," he said. 3 men lifted the stretcher, carefully transferring the heavy gorilla's body onto it. Someone held the bandage. Someone else stroked her forehead soothingly. The animal did not resist. Her road to recovery was just beginning. The open bed truck slowly drove into the field veterinary clinic. On a stretcher lay the gorilla, large with a bandage on its front leg. While it was still weak and not resisting, the rescuers quickly but carefully carried it inside. Inside, it smelled of medicine and iodine. The veterinarians were already prepared. One of them examined the bandage and carefully removed it, exposing the inflamed area. Even after drainage, the tissue remained tense and sensitive. The doctor began to wash the wound with antiseptic, removing the remaining pus, and examined the surrounding tissue. The abscess had penetrated deeply, and everything had to be cleaned to avoid reinfection. The assistant administered painkillers to alleviate the animal's suffering at least a little. Another veterinarian nearby prepared the sutures and a new sterile bandage. The team worked silently, intently. Even the animals seemed to understand. These hands meant salvation. Several days passed. The room where the gorilla was kept was quiet and cool. Sunlight streamed through the open windows, leaves rustled, and birds chirped. The gorilla lay on a soft bed of hay and fabric, its injured front leg neatly bandaged and resting on a pillow. Veterinarians came every day to change the bandages, give injections, and check its temperature. At first glance, the animal seemed sullen and wary, but its eyes no longer showed wild fear, only fatigue and weakness. Sometimes she looked out the window, as if remembering her freedom. One of the rescuers, who was around most often, sat down by the wall and just watched silently. He knew that recovery would take time, but it was already clear that her body was fighting, and the wound was beginning to heal. The first signs of improvement appeared on the 6th day. The gorilla began to carefully move her fingers on her paw and tried to lift herself up. She still couldn't stand, but she was already showing her character, wrinkling her nose and trying to push the doctor's hand away when he spent too long treating the wound. Hope returned along with life. Almost a month has passed since the exhausted and wounded gorilla was brought to the clinic. During this time, her wound was carefully treated. Dressings were changed daily, and her condition was monitored by experienced veterinarians. The pus no longer accumulated, the swelling subsided, and the skin tightened, leaving only a scar. Her fur began to grow back little by little, and the gorilla was once again able to confidently put weight on her injured leg. At first, she was distrustful of everyone. When someone entered the enclosure, she turned away, tensed up, and made alarming sounds. But one person stood out among all the others, the rescuer who first spotted her in the forest. He came every day, not approaching her, but simply sitting nearby and talking to her in a calm voice. Sometimes he brought her her favorite fruits, and gradually an understanding developed between them. She no longer hid or shied away. She listened. The day everyone had been waiting for arrived. It was decided to return the gorilla to her native environment. The car stopped at the edge of the very forest where she had been found. The cage opened. She hesitated, cautiously stepping forward and sniffing the air. It was full of familiar smells: damp leaves, earth, the rustling of birds. Taking a step, she turned around once more. The rescuer stood a little to the side. Their eyes met. Those few seconds were more than just a farewell. It was recognition, gratitude, respect. No creature on earth can forget the one who came in the darkest moment and pulled it out of pain. And the gorilla, now free, disappeared into the depths of the forest, where it was meant to be.